Hey everyone, I'm Daydreamers, and every Thursday on my channel is Plasma Apocalypse Thursday. So we're going to talk about things that have to do with the cyclical Plasma Apocalypse cycle, or pack for short. Why? Because it's easy. You can call it whatever you want to, though. That's just what, people refer to it different ways. And today we're talking about, I'm sure a lot of you have already heard about this. A couple of other really good YouTube channels out there have talked about it. And it's the Adam and Eve story by Chan Thomas. Now, I've not read the entire thing. Okay, I searched the internet trying to find like the whole entire book. I did find the PDF version of it, and I've read most of that PDF version. But then I found the actual book. I did leave a link in the chat to the allegedly desanitized version, so feel free to click on that and check it out as well. There are some differences that I found so far between the PDF version that you see here and the one that's in the link, which is really interesting. We'll talk about that at a specific point. And to begin with, I'm actually going to, before we get to this document, just for a few minutes, I do want to bring up another document, which is actually a religious book, so don't let it scare you, okay? I like all the religions. I'm not a part of any of them, but I can respect and glean from all of the value that they offer. So the first one we're going to take a look at here is the Book of Mormon here. And I'm sure this is easily going to be found in... Whoops. Uh-oh. Okay, sorry. 1 second. Let me fix that. Not professional. Alert. All right, I'm just kidding. Let's see here. Okay, let's definitely lock that. All right, then we'll go to... You take all this time, you take all this time to get it all ready, make it look good. Okay, there. See, I can move it around now. All right, cool. All right, let's see. I'm just going to make this a little bigger so we can read it all together. There we go. Now, this is from the Book of Mormon. I believe this is Nephi. Okay, I'm not as acquainted with the Book of Mormon as I am the Bible and other religious texts. And I'm not interested in anybody's opinions about the Book of Mormon or the Bible or any other religious book. What we're going to do is we're going to put all that aside, whoosh, and we're going to open our minds to see what truth we can glean. Because I believe everything is made out of the truth. Everything comes from the truth. Because the truth is the ultimate goal for me. So if it's the ultimate goal for me, I see everything. I have to learn to see truth everywhere in its various forms, it takes on many forms, and sometimes it's up to us to decipher it, to figure it out, right? It's everywhere. And that's why I love it. That's why I like being a truth seeker. All right, so let me go ahead and read this. I've already sort of highlighted some of the portions that I want. Okay, yeah, you guys can, hopefully you can see it there, but I'm going to read it along. This is chapter 8. Now, it uses some words like tempest. A tempest is a great and terrible storm. Oh, also, real quick, I just want to jump in the chat. Hey, if you guys could let me know how it sounds. I worked on the audio because I know it kind of sounded like crackly last time. Feel free to give me any critique on the audio, and just let me know. Type in @JDreamers, or if I don't see it, I'll definitely see it when I read the chat after this. Okay, so back to the Book of Mormon here. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay. Sorry, I'm nervous. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. I'm always nervous every time I do this. All right, chapter 8, tempest. The word tempest means a great storm, much like a hurricane, but it implies something that is just unnaturally fierce, okay, when it says tempest, okay? So it's like a very, very, very large and strong and powerful hurricane, but like a hurricane that's amped up on steroids, all right? So it says tempests. Earthquakes, fires, whirlwinds, and physical upheavals attest the crucifixion of Christ. Many people are destroyed. Darkness covers the land for 3 days. Those who remain bemoan their fate. Approximately, this takes place around 33 to 34 AD. So approximately at the crucifixion of Jesus, right? And it's really interesting because this is an account, remember, well, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is an account of what was happening in like the United States area, okay? North America area, right? And all this stuff allegedly went down over here at approximately the same time that those biblical events happened over in Jerusalem. And if you read the Bible and you read about what happened during the crucifixion, a lot of this stuff is going to sort of pop its head. Like there was some sort of one could speculate and say that there was a cataclysmic event at that particular time. All right, so let me go ahead and read this real quick. I'm just going to read the highlighted portions here. It says, there arose a great storm, such as no one had ever been known in all the land. It had never been known in all land. The greatest storm ever, basically, right? The perfect storm is usually how it's called in the media when they're talking about the plasma apocalypse. They just call it the perfect storm. Like so many movies talk about the perfect storm. That's what they're talking about. Sorry, I'm just pulling it back up here on my side. All right, there arose a great storm, such as a one had never been known in all the land. And there was also a great and terrible tempest. And there was terrible thunder, insomuch that it did shake the whole earth, as if it was about to divide asunder. Meaning, this tempest shook the earth, and people pretty much thought that the earth was going to split. That's how strong it was. And there were exceedingly sharp lightnings, such as had never been known in all of the land. This has to be something other than just plain old lightning. You know what I mean? It's got to be something other than that. People are familiar with lightning. Typically people don't go out of their way to say, oh, that was unlike any lightning I've ever seen. No, I mean, they might say like, whoa, that was strong, or whoa, it's hitting close, it's a little too close, or whatever, Some lightning is a little more intimidating than others, but this lightning deserves special recognition, which is what they're giving it now. Oh, hey, thanks, Corey. I appreciate it. All right, so let's see here. All right, and there were exceedingly sharp lightnings, such as had never been known in all of the land. And the city of Zarahemla did take fire, which means the lightning was so bad the entire city caught fire. Right? Keep this in mind. Now we're talking about the plasma apocalypse. And the city of Zarahemla did take fire, and the city of Moroni did sink into the depths of the sea, and the inhabitants thereof were drowned. And the earth was carried up upon the city of Moroni, that in the place of the city there became a great mountain. Okay, so let's stop real quick. Time out, all right? So far, we've got a huge tempest, right? Unlike anything anyone has ever seen. We've got really powerful lightning, unlike anything anyone's ever experienced. Thunder so strong that people thought, and earthquakes, that people thought that the earth was going to split open. And we've got one city that caught entirely on fire, and another city that sank into the ocean, and another city where a mountain seemingly instantaneously, or in a very short amount of time, grew right up where the city once was. The mountain just formed. I'm going to comment on all this. I just want to keep reading. All right, so the whole face of the land was changed because of the tempest and the whirlwinds and the thunderings and the lightnings and the exceedingly great quaking of the whole earth. And the highways were broken up, and the level roads were spoiled, and many smooth places became rough. And many great and notable cities were sunk, and many were burned, and many were shaken, till the buildings thereof had fallen to the earth, and the inhabitants thereof were slain, and the places were left desolate. All right, let me break that one down real quick. The whole face of the land was changed. The plasma apocalypse is what carves up our land. It's what shapes mountains. It's what molds. Like, it looks like the plasma fingers come down and basically shape everything. By the way, for those of you who are watching and you have no idea what I'm talking about as far as the plasma apocalypse goes, just think of your regular, average, everyday old neighborhood apocalypse and add plasma to it coming down from the sky. I'm totally kidding. No, this is the plasma apocalypse takes pretty much every single apocalyptic scenario and puts them all together into one. All right. I encourage people not to be afraid, because fear does not exist in this dojo, does it? So I encourage you all to increase your vibrations, focus on your happiness, but be wise as serpents and gentle as doves, just like it says in the Bible, right? All right, now the whole face of the land was changed because of the tempest. The plasma comes in, it changes the land. It pulls up mountains instantaneously. I believe that what happens is as the earth is shaking, it causes what's known as liquefaction. I'm going to do a video on that pretty soon. Liquefaction basically turns this, it brings the water up from the earth and it mixes with the soil or the sand. And it turns it into quicksand, basically. And so a lot of stuff sinks. That's why you have so many sinking cities in these apocalyptic ancient worlds, you know, that are passed down to us through these myths and legends and things like that. Atlantis, Mu, these places, Moroni and whatnot. They're all sinking down into the ground. They're sinking not into the ocean, right? They're sinking into the mud because the mud comes up. I'm going to share some videos, but it's an easy YouTube search. You can easily look at liquefaction in action all the time. All right. Let's see. Yeah, so the whole earth was shaking. Now it says because the whole face of the earth was changed because of the tempest and the whirlwinds, right? The tempest is the whole storm, the whole plasma apocalypse, everything that's going on, the plasma, the lightning, the electricity, all of that. But then there's the wind. And the wind is going to be possibly at supersonic speeds, which is going to be really interesting when we start looking into this other document, because he's going to talk about the wind speeds. It goes on to say, and the highways were broken up at the level. Basically, this demolishes everything that has been established previously in our modern age. You currently live in the age of the gods, okay? We have taken it for granted. We don't appreciate all that we have. Life is easy for the most part. You know what I mean? It can be easier aside from the system and all that stuff that's happening, right? We live in a pretty good time. Like, you know, people are getting fat and happy and not really worried about too much, okay? All of that is going to be remade. This plasma apocalypse cycle is a reset. It resets everything. It turns it all around. So that's what we're talking about. It also says many great notable cities sunk, like we talked about, and many were burned. Many cities were burned. I don't think that electricity, as we use it today for our technology, is any new application, okay? It's been reinvented, or not reinvented, rediscovered and rediscovered and rediscovered, and it'll continue to be rediscovered and rediscovered, or remembered by those who remember the secret. Stick around in just a second. I'm actually going to share something that I wrote with you guys about the plasma apocalypse. It's going to be a very short, brief Cliff Notes version of it, okay? Now, the inhabitants thereof were slain. Well, wait a minute. Whoa, slain? We're talking about natural events. Why are all these inhabitants being slain? Well, it's twofold, I think, right? First of all, you have all of the debris that's going to be lifted up into the air and become projectiles, all right? So some people might be slain just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And there are precautions we can take and stuff, but I'm gonna do survival in another video. All right, and the second thing is the phantazoids, okay? I talk about the phantazoids quite often. In short, they are fractal-verse creatures that will come down into our world, and they're basically going to look very alien to us. A lot of them are going to look very bug-like, crab-like, spider-like, lobster, I don't know, whatever. A lot of the sea creature type stuff, which is for a purpose and a reason as well. And biblically speaking, according to not just the Bible, but various religions, there will be these demonic entities or animals or whatever you want to call them returning to the earth in order to help the plasma apocalypse, in order to help with this reset, in order to sort of go down into the inner parts and really clean it out thoroughly and do a good job of it, basically, right? But that's why I believe some of the inhabitants were slain, possibly. And then it goes on to say, and there were some who were carried away in the whirlwind. And whither they went, no man knoweth, save that they know they were carried away. That's all they know. Like, whoosh, where'd he go? Pfft, he went up. I don't know where he went. He got sucked up. That's what happens, okay? So, in short, this is what happens. There's a short period of time where basically there is no gravity or electromagnetic force, whatever you'd like to call the thing that keeps us on the ground. It goes away. We float around for a little bit. Anything that's floating around and those winds start to pick it up, right? Which I think the winds might probably they're likely to start off kind of slow and get stronger and stronger is my estimate. But anything that's up there in the wind is going to float away like a balloon. So this is talking about that. There were some who were carried away in the whirlwind, and whither they went, no man went. No man knoweth, save that they were carried away. They were gone. Yeah, they got sucked up, basically. Okay, let me go over to this side real quick. Now, this is interesting. Can you see this? Let me see. Yes, you can. Okay, cool. This, I'm just going to start up here on verse 22. And there was not any light seen. Oh, because there was darkness as well that covered the earth for 3 days, right? So this is really interesting part. There was not any light seen, neither fire, nor glimmer, neither the sun, nor moon, nor stars. For so great were the mists of darkness, which were upon the face of the land. The mists of darkness. So another part of the plasma apocalypse is when the hole above the North Pole in our sky opens up, however you'd like to see it, whatever your perspective on the world is, whatever, call it whatever you want. A hole opens up between us and space, okay? However you call it, use whatever words you like. I know everyone loves calling it the way they like to call it. But anyway, there's a hole up in the sky. That's the all-seeing eye, that's everything. It opens up, and when it does that, our world depressurizes, which means the air expands. And when the air expands, it generates fog or mist or possibly snow, depending on where you are. I don't know about this. I'm not 100% on the snow thing, but definitely fog and mist. So this says, remember, the sun's going to go out. All of the ancient religions all have that in their end of days scenario. Okay? And outside of religions, the sun going out and stopping and reversing course and all of this stuff has been documented. We just don't take them, we don't believe them because they're from indigenous cultures, right? All right. Well, I believe the indigenous cultures. Let's see here. Oh, for so great were the mists of darkness which were upon the face of the land. And it came to pass that it did last for the space of 3 days, that there was no light seen. Also a part of the plasma apocalypse. Let me see if I highlighted anything else real quick. No, I think that was it. All right, cool. So before we get over to the Adam and Eve story, I'm going to read to you my summarization of the plasma apocalypse. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reading this, or I'll probably record it and just, have a video because I don't want to read it every time. Okay? These are my Cliff's notes. This is going to take me like 5 minutes, and you will have much of the information and understand it a little better, hopefully. Now remember, I just want to give a disclaimer. I am not an expert. I am a researcher, okay? This is all stuff I share with you as I come across it. Does not mean it's true. Does not mean it's 100%. I don't think, well, this guy knows everything. Don't do that, okay? This is my research. I share it with you. Maybe it'll help some of you out, further along or whatnot, or give you some ideas of things that you could research as well. Ultimately, when it comes to the end of the world, the very best research is going to be your own. You have to put in some work to figure some things out, okay? Because we all have little pieces of that puzzle. All right, so let me go ahead and read this real quick. Oh, actually, let me jump in the chat here. Samyaza says, right now sounds good, brother. Oh, thank you. Sorry about the audio check. He also says the Ouroboros snake, the beginning and the end to the pre-seasonal cycle. Exactly, right? Snakes don't usually wrap around and eat their own tails. I mean, yes, it has happened. But the reason that they do that is because it's the plasma wrapped around our world, right? That's the snake that's wrapped around our world. And when that middle pillar shoots up during the reversal, that baby blue white light that shoots up from the middle of the earth, and then the plasma is wrapped around it, what does that make, right? That's the symbol for healing or a purpose. Ted Ozzy, hey, what's up, man? Says there's a website called Talk to Transformer that finishes your paragraphs. It is intelligent and can complete anything with some accuracy. Try it for the plasma apocalypse. Okay. You'll have to remind me of that later. And finally, Samyaza says, what is considered the lee side of Pikes Peak? We're going to talk about that. I'm totally going to get to that in just a second. All right. So I'm going to read this. This is the Cliff's Notes, J Dreamers, Cliff's Notes versions of the plasma apocalypse, okay? The plasma apocalypse. Hold on, let me just get rid of this real quick. There we go. Okay. Hey, Eric just subscribed. Welcome, Eric. The plasma apocalypse is the cyclical cataclysm that changes all life on Earth. It was as it was previously known. The plasma apocalypse cycle has been known by every culture. It has been recorded in every religion. It has been described from various perspectives and has gone by many names. Armageddon, the end of days, the rapture, the end times, Judgment Day, the apocalypse, and many, many more. The event has always been seen as being both a destructive and life-giving process. When it brings death to one thing, it also gives birth to another. It is a marker for both the end and beginning of recorded time. Many of our ancient ancestors knew about the cyclical world reset. They would prepare and plan for their survival and preservation of their families, retreating to deep underground caverns when they saw the signs and omens of destruction. Because the exact date of the event was never known, they made annual preparations which would become traditions that would be carried out by their descendants, who would eventually forget about the cataclysm to come. We are those descendants. This generation has no memory of the creation event, the reoccurring genesis of our world. It survives mostly in the collective subconscious of humanity, secretly escaping through creative mediums like movies, books, music. Those who remember do so in part, as if trying to recall a powerful dream that slips away from the conscious mind. Those who try and return to the old ways are avoided, mocked, and humiliated, labeled doomsday preppers and preachers of doom and gloom, heretics to the divine and all-powerful Church of humanity. But the ancients knew a secret. Those who survive the reset will inherit the new world as masters of themselves and their environments. True and complete freedom bequeathed unto them from a dying age. As I said in the beginning, it has been described from various perspectives. The following is an abbreviated account of the events of the plasma apocalypse as given by my own. All right, here we go. You ready? These are all the events I could think of. Still, there's probably going to be a lot more. These are just some major things, okay? All right, here we go. The electromagnetic polarity of our world will begin to fluctuate before completely reversing, causing the first signs of what is to come. The sky itself will begin to moan like a woman about to give birth. The sun will disappear for a time, and the world will become very dark. During the neutral point of the polarity shift, the world will experience what they will call zero gravity. Everything that isn't attached to the Earth will float. The invisible electromagnetic force field around our world will dissipate, and the physical barrier that keeps the Earth pressurized will break, as a massive hole appears in the sky above the North Pole, revealing the plasma vortex that leads to other realms. Bloodlines who have kept the secret of the black hole in the sky and who have prepared over many lifetimes for this very moment will enter into their rockets and blast off, shooting themselves into the swirling vortex to finally make their escape from this world. Ignorant spectators will only assume that their governments are fighting off a strange alien invasion. The hole in the sky will cause the world to depressurize, expanding the atmosphere into instant fog and mist, causing a temporary shortage of oxygen, rupturing eardrums, and creating a spiraling wind that will grow into a world storm, aka a tempest. The downdraft of the world storm will pull supercooled air from the upper atmosphere down around the Arctic Circle, instantly freezing everything it touches into frozen statues of ice. Everything that was floating will be sucked up into the storm toward the opening above the North Pole. Bodies of water that are not sucked up through the opening in the sky will freeze into massive chunks of hail as large as boulders, waiting to fall back down to the ground. Water that isn't frozen will be polluted by the dust and debris of the storm, giving it a blood-like color, waiting to rain back down onto the world. The earth will grow in size, causing worldwide earthquakes that will turn much of the soil into mud through liquefaction. With electromagnetic force fields temporarily down, the plasma that spirals around our world will enter into our atmosphere looking for attractive places to ground itself. The more powerful plasma streams will carve out canyons and tug at the salty, mud-covered ground, creating mountains in short time. Many centers of civilization will sink into the mud, while others will petrify instantly. Otherworldly creatures and beings that I call phantazoids will enter into our world. The influx of plasma will possess some of the living, reanimate the dead, and bring to life electronics, all of which will submit to its objective to seek out and remove those with the old frequency signature until the plasma is cut off from its source. Smaller strands of plasma will dock with the heads of the plasma possessed and reboot the brains of many survivors, wiping their memories of the past. The plasma streams in various forms will set fire to much of the world. Electromagnetic polarity will reverse, and a bluish-white beam of plasma will shoot up from the center of the Earth, up through to the North Pole, into the opening in the sky for all to see, aka Project Bluebeam. The direction of light will reverse, flowing upward, revealing the true nature of our cosmic surroundings. Light will not come from a focal point called the sun. Oh, hold on. Man, hold on 1 second. All right, there we go. I totally forgot I was supposed to play some music with this. Dang it. Next time, all right? Well, we got it on now, so it would have sounded way more epic. I'm just kidding. All right, let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, my notes. All right, where was I here? The direction of light will reverse, flowing upward, revealing the true nature of our cosmic surroundings. Light will not come from a focal point called the sun, but from the sky itself, which will be various shades of purple, red, orange, and green, depending on one's proximity to the North Pole. The electromagnetic force field will surround our world once again, repelling the rivers of plasma and cutting them off from their source. That's the inside plasma, right? It'll be stuck in here. A weak electromagnetic force will emerge, allowing leftover floating debris to fall back down to the ground. Meanwhile, objects that crossed the upper atmosphere force boundary will fall upward to the barrier above. Steampunk survivors will sift through the piles of junk that fall to the ground, scavengers of old world artifacts, looking for clues to their past and trying to reverse engineer or repurpose leftover technology. The world will be energized with life by the sudden influx of plasma, which will alchemically create an abundance of oxygen and other elements that will promote extended lifespans. I'm just going to pause real quick because I just want to ask the chat if the music's too loud, or is it good? I hope it's good. It just took me forever to try to figure this out. Hey everybody! Hey, what's up too? A shout out to J Star Peace, Ted Ozzy, Mother Dragon, Doc Michael, Touche, Dennis L. Hey Dennis. Let's see here. I'm just going back over the chat real quick to see if anybody said anything. Okay, cool. So does it sound okay? I hope it didn't sound like overwhelming. I wanted to have a little fullness, you know what I mean? But not overwhelming. I still want my words to be understood without the music being a distraction, basically. Hey, Mother Dragon. Sean, what's up, man? All right, I'll check back in just a second about the music. Let me continue on here. The strong electromagnetic connection between all life forms will promote peace and enable psychic abilities amongst survivors. Now remember, I said promote peace, okay? Not ensure it. Plants, animals, people, and electronics will be able to communicate with one another. The muscles of many survivors will seem strengthened as the weakened electromagnetic force, once called gravity, lessens the weight of everything. These conditions, and less pressure on the surface, will allow for gigantic growth of all life born into the new world. When those conditions begin to change, life will shrink in size over time once more. Survivors emerging from the earth will carve images of the apocalypse into the rock as a reminder to future generations who will eventually forget all about these events. Small groups will retain the knowledge. One group will guard the secret of the eye in the sky, passing it along down their generations to empower their lineage. Small groups will retain, I already said that. The other group will share their memories, but will not be believed. Because they will be infiltrated by the other group, they will develop tests for outsiders to pass to prove their intentions selfless, wise, and loving. One group will hide in plain sight, slowly manipulating the amnesia-induced world. The other will go unnoticed, becoming reclusive and waiting for the seekers of truth to find them. Pockets of lower frequency survivors will turn to cannibalism before the world's plant life begins to regrow. Phantazoids will fight for their survival, or hide from the natives of their strange new world, only to become mythic and legendary creatures, the fantastic beasts and monsters of old. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Feel free to replay that later on if you want to, but I'm going to do a video that just records all of that. I'm going to put that at the beginning, at the intro to my Plasma Apocalypse Thursdays. That way everyone just can, I don't have to re-explain everything. You know what I mean? I just play the video and they get the gist of it, right? Also, if you go to my website, you can sort of check out elements of that as well. Hey, thanks, Mother Dragon. I really appreciate it. Thanks for letting me know about the music. All right, now let's check out the document that we've all came here to check out. This is the Adam and Eve story, the Chan document here. Now, I'm not going to read all of it. I'm going to read some highlighted portions that I feel like reading. It's very, very long, okay? At least to do on a live stream. So we're going to sort of hit the highlights here. So let me fix this real quick. There we go. All right, let me just make sure this is good. All right. Now, I do want to point something out. This guy who wrote this book, his worldview, he has a cosmology of, like, modern day, how they teach the earth is a ball and spinning around and stuff like that. So he's coming from that perspective. Some things he adds to my walk, and some things, I've already been where he was when he wrote this. Sorry, it's like, I gotta scroll. There we go. I think this is the beginning. Okay, here's the contents. The next cataclysm, the great floods, the story, and the event. I'm also going to skip a lot of, like, the biblical references, because you sort of have to be a semi-biblical expert to even understand what he's saying when he talks about the book of Ezra and, the history and what was happening at the time and stuff like that. So I'm going to save you guys a lot of that stuff. All right, here we go. The next cataclysm, like Noah's, 6,500 years ago. Where is my highlighter? There it is. All right, 6,500 years ago. Check this out. Like Adam and Eve's, 11,500 years ago. This is very close to that every 6,000 years, okay? This is back, eschatologically speaking, from a biblical standpoint, God, the God of the Bible, said, for 6 days you shall work and do all your labor. The seventh day shall be holy. It shall be a day of rest. Right? I'm paraphrasing. It also talks about, these are sort of like, when you start researching the Bible codes and the deeper teachings of the Bible and stuff like that. And it's not just the Bible. That just happens to be my area of expertise, okay? It also says that to the God of the Bible, or to the Lord, 1 day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like 1 day. So if you take that, the commandment to rest on the Sabbath, right? Work 6 days, rest on the seventh. For the earth, or for God, right? Or for the plasma apocalypse, what that means is that the earth gets to work for 6,000 years. At the very beginning of that marker, going into 6001, that brings on the Sabbath of 1,000 years for the earth itself, which would be the time when the earth is cleansed and allowed to regrow and start over, basically. That's the most logical time. That would be every 6,000 years. Look at these dates. 6,500 years ago, 11,500. We're pretty close, I believe, right? And there have been people who have tried to guess the creation date according to the Bible and some other resources. And a lot of them are really close to the 6,000 year mark, which is kind of where I am too. Okay, so let me go ahead and read through this a little bit. I'll stop after each chapter so I can check on the chat and everything. And we might take a break in the middle because I'm already kind of losing my voice. Sorry. All right, let's do this. With the rumble so low as to be inaudible, growing throbbing, then fuming into a thundering roar, the earthquake starts. It's not like any earthquake in recorded history. In California, the mountains shake like ferns in a breeze. The mighty Pacific rears back and piles up into the mountain of water more than 2 miles high, then starts its race eastward. All right, let me highlight a couple things here. First of all, eastward and 2 miles high, okay? All right, let me go ahead and move this so I can see. All right, so this is important. Why? Because one, we have many references of water floating up into the air, entire bodies of water missing after there's been some sort of apocalyptic event. You know, I've read stories from Native Americans who have said that they've went out looking for their lake after this huge storm or whatever, and the lake was gone. Okay, this is all throughout everywhere, including the Bible when they walked through the Red Sea. The water just floated right up into the sky, right? Immanuel Velikovsky put forth the theory that maybe one of the planets out there got too close, and so its gravitational pull started overpowering Earth's, and so it was kind of pulling the water up off the surface or whatnot, right? So that was Velikovsky. He was very close, and he knew that the water went up somehow. He tried to explain it by looking at gravity, or what he thought of as gravity, right? But here's what happens. There is zero gravity, right? And everything floats. But when that wind picks up, anything the wind just barely even pushes, it's going to just move it on. Like it's just going to keep on going. So all that water that starts just kind of floating around, just like how you see, you know, when NASA shows water in space, that's what it's going to look like. That water's just going to just kind of just hang out like jello. Just going to look like jello in the ocean, okay? Just going to be kind of weird and blobby and liquidy. But when the winds start to push it, then it's going to start to create these huge waves, and they're going to move across the land, essentially, and until they get sucked up into the sky, okay? Now, here's the thing. He's going to talk about that water covering everything. I believe that that's accurate in part, okay? I don't believe that the water, at least not this time, okay? There are two plasma apocalypse cycles. There's the red sky and the blue sky. I've been studying the red sky because I believe that's what's coming next, so I'm more into the red sky one than the blue sky right now. But anyhow, the water goes up, it covers everything. Some of it may come back down, right? But a lot of it gets sucked up into the sky, and that's why the Bible in the book of Revelation at the very end says that John looked and he saw, and there were no more oceans. The seas were no more, right? And it also says that they didn't need the sun, basically, because the light was everywhere, which is another part of that. All right, so we're going to come back to the water thing in just a bit. With the force of 1,000 armies, the wind attacks, ripping, shredding everything in its supersonic bombardment. The unbelievable mountain of Pacific seawater follows the wind eastward, bearing Los Angeles and San Francisco, as if they were nothing but grains of sand. So eastward, all right? I've been trying to do some research, trying to figure out which way the wind is going to go, because that's going to be really important, right? And you want to know what direction the wind's going to be coming from. Right now, based on my research so far, it seems like it's going to be going west to east, okay? But it's highly likely that with each cycle, maybe the winds go in the opposite direction. I don't know. But right now, I've got a lot of, synchronicity happening that the wind's going to be going west to east, which is going to play a factor on who's affected the most, right? Nothing but nothing stops the relentless, overwhelming onslaught of wind and ocean. Across the continent, the 1,000-mile-an-hour wind wreaks its unholy vengeance everywhere, mercilessly, unceasingly. Every living thing is ripped into shreds while being blown across the countryside, and the earthquake leaves no place untouched. In many places, the Earth's molten sublayer breaks through and spreads a sea of white-hot liquid fire to add to the Holocaust. So he's talking about the earthquakes and the Earth opening up and lava coming up everywhere. I've actually had very prophetic dreams many, many times over about this event, and I didn't understand it. I didn't understand those dreams, until I started studying the plasma apocalypse, right? Like I had a dream that Pikes Peak was on fire, and there was smoke everywhere, and it smelled like brimstone, and people I could see little streaks of like lava on the mountain and stuff, and I was going around trying to like rescue all these different people from different nationalities and try to lead them to safety and stuff. Many of you have had similar dreams just like that. Let me fix this so you can read it all here. And I encourage you to share your dreams with one another, because I believe the closer we get to this event, the more our dreams are going to be similar to one another. Semyaz is in the chat and says, J-Dreamers, in movies Deep Impact, The Day After Tomorrow, they both show the similarities with quakes, winds, water, walls, and upper atmosphere dropping down, freezing everything instantly. Exactly. Also Interstellar, right? The movie Interstellar, they went to that planet, right, that had like this huge 2-mile wall of water, and they thought it was a mountain when it was really far away, and then you have to see that scene on Interstellar. It's all describing the plasma apocalypse. All right, let me get back to this. Oh, hey, everything's good with the music still, right? Just feel free to let me know, if there's any issues. All right, let's keep moving. Within 3 hours, the fantastic wall of water moves across the continent, burying the wind-ravaged land under 2 miles of seething water coast to coast. In a fraction of a day, all vestiges of civilization are gone, and the great cities Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Dallas, New York are nothing but legends. Barely a stone is left where millions walked just a few hours before. I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but there are times when I go out and I'm running errands or whatever, and I just look around at all the people, and it's exactly like The Sixth Sense, the movie. There's a reason it's The Sixth Sense, okay? The reason why number 6 is prolific in everything esoteric and everything relating to the plasma apocalypse, which by some is seen as God and some is seen as the devil, and etc. But in The Sixth Sense, the kid says, I see dead people. Like everywhere he looks, he just sees dead people. Now, I know a lot of people out there, including myself, have said that, sort of mocking society and just saying they're dead, they're soulless, they're zombies, or, because of how they're acting, because they're not waking up, because they're just so zonked out. But that's the spiritual or energetic aspect behind the actual physical eventuality. They're going to be gone one day, And I have those thoughts sometimes. So this is all going to happen in the blink of an eye. It's going to happen so quickly, which I'm glad. I'm very glad. I want this to last a long time, right? But it's short and it's powerful. Hey, Keita Roos donated $10. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's very kind. Thanks, Keita. This is something that's going to happen very quickly. All right, all of our strange geographic anomalies, strange rock formations, strange carvings, mountains, valleys, all this stuff is made in a very short amount of time. Unlike what academia would have you believe, which is over millions of years. That's their special magic words they say in order to make you believe whatever comes next, right? Over millions of years ago, right? Because you can't fathom millions of years ago, right? No, this stuff does not happen millions of years ago. Stuff happens quite frequently on a short scale. Semyaza is in the chat and says, J-Dreamers, it seems these types of events are taboo to talk about. The governments are the best prepared with underground tunnels through us, and HUD is building homes under Antarctica. Yeah, I know, right? Like, everyone that knows is preparing for it. Of course, I'm preparing for it, right? It took me long enough, right? I'm coming in the game a little late, but I'm also preparing for it. So that's why I think it's a great topic for everyone to bring up, everyone to discuss, you know? I hope that by sharing these things with you, you'll all be able to look into it, find out your own interesting research, and most importantly, find the best ways to survive, the best ways to change as well. Because I believe a huge part of this is not just the fear aspect of the surviving it, but what good is surviving it if you're not a good person? What good is surviving it if life sucks? You know what I mean? You don't want to take some crappy, depressed, sucky life into like paradise in the new world. Well, I don't want people to, right? So I talk about that aspect of it as well. All right, so let's keep reading here. Excuse me. All right, so basically all of these major cities, they're gone, all right? And it's not, I don't believe it's all due according to like a wall of water or anything, because as we're going to read in a minute, he talks about how people are on the lee side of Pikes Peak, or Mount Massive, I believe is in the other book that he has. In the one in the link, it says Mount Massive. But basically, it doesn't matter what the name of the mountain is. People who are on the other side of a steep mountain, that water won't even touch you. Right? It's floating, remember, okay? So it hits the bottom of the mountain, the water hits it and comes up, and the city and everything underneath it is safe, right? The waters will pass right above you. You can watch the whole ocean just creepily fly right past. Possibly. Just a possible scenario I'm throwing out there. And the winds as well, right? I mean, the winds would still naturally want to sort of come over the mountain, but the people who live further away are going to get the wind the most, right? And the winds, those are like Rodan in the Godzilla movies. For those of you interested in that type of thing. All right, let's keep going. A few lucky ones who managed to find shelter from the screaming wind. Shelter from the screaming wind. On the lee side of Pikes Peak. It just so happens I live on the lee side of Pikes Peak. It's not just Pikes Peak, remember that, okay? I highly recommend, do your research, check out where your local steep mountain ranges are, the tallest mountains in your area, and find out where those are. And then find out which side of it you live on. Do you live on the side where the wind blows? Or do you live on the side where the storms, are coming at you and then they hit the mountain? So those people watch the sea of molten fire break through the quaking valleys below. The raging waters follow, piling higher and higher, streaming over the molten fire earth and rising almost to their feet. Only great mountains such as this one can withstand the cataclysmic onslaught. North America is not alone in her death throes. Central America suffers the same cannonade, winds, earth, fire, and inundation. Flooding, basically. South America finds the Andes not high enough to stop the cataclysmic violence pounded out by nature in her berserk rage. In less than a day, Ecuador, Peru, and western Brazil are shaken madly by the devastating earthquake, burned by molten fire, earth fire, buried under cubic miles of torrential Pacific seas, and then turned into a frozen hell. Everything freezes. Man, beast, plant, and mud are all rock hard in less than 4 hours. Now remember, that's according to his research, okay? This is just another guy who picked up a piece of the puzzle. He's offering it to the world. Now, the question here is, why does the CIA have any interest in this book whatsoever? This should be fiction. This should be 100% complete fantasy according to the government, because this is not taught by the government, okay? It's not mentioned by the government. Why do you think they would want this book? And some people out there I've read on Reddit and stuff like that, they're saying, oh, well, this book was only sanitized because they just took out the blank white pages before the next chapter, or blah, 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 or whatever. Sorry. The CIA, last I checked, are not librarians, okay? They don't care that the stupid book has blank pages on it or whatever. They have it. Central Intelligence Agency, okay? This book contains intelligence, and it's up to us to decipher it. Semyaza says, J-Dreamers, unfortunately, due to general people who are still connected to the Matrix, refuse to consider anything other than what the government tells them and refuse to see the signs. Well, that's going to happen. It is. You know what I mean? It is unfortunate, but that's why we have a period of mourning, right? In the Hebrew tradition, they had what were known as the 10 days of awe, which I believe were the 10 days before Yom Kippur, which was the most holy day of atonement, right? It was the day when death was prevalent, okay? Basically, it's the plasma apocalypse. And what they did is they mourned for 10 days beforehand because they knew about the death to come, the many, many deaths that would happen on the Day of Atonement, right? Or one could say the dying of Jesus or whatever. That's all the same day, and it's all the same symbolism, right? I believe that right now we are in the days of awe. You know, that's why you have Generation Z right now. Why do you think they have all of this morbid fascination with making fun of death? You know, they have all these like little death comics and things, and they joke about dying or suicide, things like that. I believe that that's the energy that is manifesting. The energy has to manifest in turn physically, right? In turn in action, in turn in the physical world, right? So as the male polarity or the male energy starts to shift and go into the neutral, you're going to see that reflected in the physical world. Same thing when it goes back into the female energy. But I believe that a lot of us know. Hold on, let me change this music real quick. It's kind of distracting me. There we go. I believe a lot of us know. We pick up on the energy, okay? We are right there with the earth. When the earth is resonating, when the earth is vibrating, that vibration, aka communication, goes right through us. More strongly than any of their little radio signals or cell phone towers or any of that stuff. The earth's vibration goes right through us, which means if you tune in, if you adjust your frequency to match that of the earth's, or if you have already, those types of people are more apt to pick up on what's being said by the earth. See what I'm saying? All right, where was I? Oops. I hope I didn't just mess that up. Cancel. Okay. Let me just check. Sorry. Okay, we're still good. Okay, good. All right, great. All right, let's see here. So South America, the Andes, so you got 2 Mile High, you know, water, the ocean spinning around with this big tempest and everything. Lots of earthquakes, worldwide earthquakes, and that's because the earth is going to grow. The earth has little growing pains here and there, but this is the time when it sprouts. This is the time when it blossoms. This is the time when it opens up. And that's literally what apocalypse means. It means uncovering. I know a lot of us have looked it up and we've been told and we've heard from other people. It means unveiling, right? Like your eyes, like you can see. Yes, that's a part of it, but it literally means to take the cover off of something. Think about that. All right, let's see. Where were we here? Oh, everything freezes. Okay, I want to talk about that real quick. So here's what happens. The world is pressurized, right? If you put a hole in that pressure, all of the liquid inside, including the gas and its liquid type of form or whatever, it's going to start funneling around. It's going to start spiraling around, right? I would suppose it would be quickest at the very top immediately, and then it would get faster and faster as it goes around, right? So the winds would be a lot slower around the outside. Now, it's speculated, well, I'll let him read. He's going to speculate about how fast the winds are going. But along with that, it's basically like a giant tornado or a giant hurricane or a tempest, right? It's a suction. It's a vortex suction, sucking things up. What happens is not only do those things get sucked up and they go up and out through the release valve, basically, but the things that are not right in the middle, they're going to project around and back down, just like as happens with a tornado, right? The updraft and the downdraft. Now, all that air and all that very cold temperature up there is going to shoot back down, and I believe that that gives us our Arctic Circle. I believe that's where the Arctic Circle comes from, and that's also why we find these mammoths that were instantly frozen that nobody wants to talk about. Like, Every school system, it should be on the news. Like, this just in, entire animals were frozen solid in some sort of cataclysmic event. Oh, the music is annoying. Sorry. All right. Well, I'll just turn it off, and that way. Hold on. Give me 1 second. That was my fault. I was trying to pick like some epic sounding music or whatever. I kind of want to have some music on though. Let's see. Let's try some good old fashioned Celtic music. How about that? Oh, I know. Here we go. Just 1 second. I promise we'll get back to it. I set this all up, so I just kind of want to play with it for just a second and make sure it works. Because I think it adds something to what we're doing here. All right, moods. There we go. All right, I can always change the song too. I could always turn it down. I could do that too. Let me turn it down real quick. Let's see. Okay, cool. I'll just turn it down a touch there. There we go. All right, let me know if that's better. Thank you for letting me know. All right, where was I here? All right, let's keep on reading. Europe cannot escape the onslaught. The raging Atlantic piles higher and higher upon itself, following the screeching wind eastward. The Alps, the Pyrenees, Urals, the Scandinavian mountains are shaken and heaved even higher before the wall of water strikes. Western Africa and the sands of the Sahara vanish in nature's wrath, under savage attack by wind and ocean. They are the area bounded by the Congo, South Africa, and Kenya suffers only severe earthquakes and winds, no inundation. Survivors, let me circle that word there, or highlight it. Survivors there marvel at the sun standing still in the sky for nearly half a day. So survivors, that's a key word. Okay, this is a lot of potentially scary stuff. This is a lot of chaos. Okay, remember, these stories about the chaos stood the test of time because there were survivors. Okay, it's not the end of all life. The world isn't going to explode or anything like that. I mean, it possibly, but that would be a different theory. We'd have to come up with a different theory for that. But yeah, I want you guys to have hope. You know what I mean? I want you to know and believe that you can last through this event. And if you do last through this event, there are going to be some very interesting rewards for you on the other side, including the world is basically yours. Okay? I mean, yours and everybody else's. Okay? Don't get me wrong. I don't want people trying to take over the world or anything, but you'll share it. Your neighbors will be few and far between. All right? All the land around wherever you are will be plenty for everybody to go live wherever you want. Go wherever you want. The world will be your oyster and your paradise should you survive. Semyaza says, just your voice resonates. Hey, thanks. Okay, all right, let's keep on going. Eastern Siberia and the Orient suffer a strange fate indeed, as though a giant subterranean scythe sweeps away the earth's foundations, accompanied by the wind in a screaming symphony of supersonic death and destruction. As the Arctic basin leaves its polar home, Eastern Siberia, Manchuria, China, and Burma are subjected to the same annihilation as South America: wind, earth fire, inundation, and freezing. Jungle animals are shredded to ribbons by the wind. Well, possibly the wind. Okay, yes. Wind's gonna... if it's as strong as he says it is, then yes, I could definitely see it hurting people, right? If it's less strong than that, even anything above 200 miles an hour kicks up debris into the air, and they all become projectiles. So not just the wind, you have to think about all the stuff that the wind is going to be blowing. right? Piled unto a mountains of flesh and bone, and buried under avalanches of seawater and mud. Then comes the terrible, paralyzing cold. Not man, nor beast, nor plant, nor earth is left unfrozen in the entire Eastern Asian continent, most of which remains below sea level. Now keep in mind, this is a cyclical plasma event, and I believe that every time this happens, the Earth grows. I believe it gets bigger, which means if it does that, naturally you're going to have a different land masses. You're going to have different areas and possibly a different North Pole. You know what I mean? So the magnetic North Pole is probably going to be somewhere else, and then it's going to shift over towards the end as the poles start to shift. Basically, the poles are just flipping over, and so we're seeing that in mainstream news today, right? Like they tell us, and nobody even seems to care about this, which blows my mind. Yeah, so the magnetic North Pole has been shifting from Alaska up towards where the North Pole actually is. Well, good, because that's where it belongs, first of all. But secondly, shouldn't that cause some alarm? Shouldn't that really raise a flag for everybody, right? The people on the news, the newscasters, they're just like, oh, that's so weird. What do you think, Jane? Oh, I think that's pretty weird too. Ha 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 ha. You know, like, it's all like joking and stuff. Like, they're not like, whoa, that's a major Earth shift. That's a major change in our environment. What possible consequences could this have? You know what I mean? All right, let's keep on reading. East of the Urals in western Siberia, a few lucky people survived the fantastic winds and quakes. Antarctica and Greenland. You know how Greenland has been in the news lately? Right? Greenland is an important piece of land. First of all, there may be a bridge that actually connects Greenland, or I believe Greenland is the closest body of land to the North Pole, the true North Pole. Not the Google Earth North Pole, okay? I'm talking about the old world North Pole, which probably is interesting. I think there's probably a hole at the North Pole, okay? I think there's probably a hole up there that goes into the inner Earth, and that's the entrance into the hollow section of our world, or the inner portion, the underworld, Sheol, whatever you want to call it. Admiral Byrd literally said he went in there and they sucked him down into the Earth, basically. So, yeah, Greenland's really important. And not only that, like if you go according to the breadcrumbs that are left to us in fantasy from our subconscious, right? If you remember BFG, okay, there's a part in the movie BFG where he puts out a map. They want to know where he lives. Where's the land of the giants? He shows them. He goes up to like Greenland, and then he actually hops up into like an into fashion into the North Pole. But he stops in Greenland along the way. Greenland, Iceland, those surrounding small islands right there, they are the closest ones to the true North Pole, to the middle of the world, to Middle Earth, if you will, where there are elves and ogres and all that wonderful stuff. Giants. Oh, and then the other thing is Fezzik. Fezzik in the Princess. Let me get rid of this music. Now it's just bothering me. I gotta stop this. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so I tried it out. I don't know. I'll have to actually find some good music. But Fezzik, if you watch The Princess Bride, right? There's this line where he's not doing a good job, even though he's pulling three people up a rope up the cliffs of insanity, which is all symbolic, by the way. And his boss is basically like, do you want to go back where do you want to be unemployed in Greenland? Right? He's a giant, and he's from Greenland. So the writer of that movie purposefully put that in there. Giants basically are from Greenland, right? The Greenland area. The giants, the gods, all of the angels and stuff, they came from the middle and they branched out. Possibly, right? All right, let's see what else. Let's keep on reading here. On the 7th... Hold on. Oh, Antarctica and Greenland, with their ice caps, now rotate around the Earth to the torrid zone, and the fury of wind and inundation marches on for 6 days. 6 days and nights. Okay, so according to this guy, from the CIA document, the worldwide reset and all hell breaking loose is to last 6 days, approximately. Okay? That's good. That's good news. That's not a super long time. That's better than years and years, and you know what I mean? That's not bad. Chances are good. Like, you could survive that for a week. You know what I mean? Just keep a level head. Be calm. During the 6th day, the oceans start to settle in their new homes, running off to the high grounds. All right, I want to point something else out, too, because he talks about the ice caps. So here's the theory. The ice caps rotate around the Earth. You see that? Now, here's the theory. The theory that he has, because he's not looking at it from a plasma apocalypse cycle, although, according to what I've read, he was starting to get pretty close. And possibly did. You know, we just don't have that information that's been handed down to us. But him, possibly Charles Hapgood and some other people, they were looking at the crust of the Earth being displaced. And like the core of the Earth, according to like the globular theory, right? There's the core and it's all like a ball. And then the crust is wrapped around it. And then the crust would like shift because all this snow would pile up. Sounds ridiculous when I say it, but all this snow would pile up and all this ice would grow in Greenland or Antarctica down here, right? And it would get real heavy and basically the crust would kind of like swing in whatever direction, right? And then the ice would melt and then the Earth would be stable. But whenever the ice builds back up, then it shifts and tilts the crust. Now, I believe that's close to the truth, okay? However, I think it's just the Earth growing, that's all, okay? The Earth has these massive worldwide earthquakes because it's stretching out and it's growing like everything grows. So I think that's, you know, when I read him talking about the, the crust of the Earth moving around and stuff, possibly. I can't say it's not true, but I'm just saying, you know, it resonates more with me that the Earth is just growing because everything grows. Everything lives and grows and then dies and then lives again. Okay, on the 7th day, the horrendous rampage is over. Well, there's a movie that they just did called Rampage, right? This stuff's in the movies. It's everywhere. It's all over the place. The Arctic Ice Age is ended. Right? So according to him, the Ice Age was like 6 days. That's it. That's where all the ice came from, was this 6-day event. And a new Stone Age begins. Well, that's really interesting to me because here's what happens. It's not just a Stone Age as in people are caveman and they have to use basic tools given to them by nature, right? Which is good. That's a good thing. But it's also literally becomes a Stone Age world, an age of stone, because I believe that the plasma has the potential to petrify, that it can actually change things into rock. So, for example, we have the Earth starts shaking, liquefaction, right? Gets all very muddy and stuff. Then these huge stalks of plasma shoot down, hit that muddy water, which everything started to sink into, right? Wherever it hits, it electrifies it, and alchemically changes it into rock. Whatever is caught in that mud changes into rock, becomes fossilized, however you want to look at it, right? Hey, Ted Ozzy's in the chat says, J-Dreamers, imagine trying to find magnetic north with a compass after the reset, only to walk into a Phanazoid or some new age magical entity. Just think about how different the survival will be. I do think about that quite often, actually. I'm glad you are too. Let's see. Semyaza says, J-Dreamers, with this event so close at hand and so few with eyes to see, kind of waiting to see the after effect, the Titans and Phanazoids, and us, a Fred Flintstone. Excuse me. 1 second, sorry. My body's acting up here. I do too. I'm with you guys. People are going to choose to see these things however they want to choose them. I choose to see the fantastic in it and be in awe of it. I'm excited. I look forward to people being forced to live life. I think that's great. Our power went off yesterday. Twice now here in Colorado Springs, we've had these blackouts. And I called the electric company to find out what happened. And they left a message for me saying, if anyone knows what caused these power outages? Please let us know. Like, they don't even know, right? So I'm like, okay, it's a sign. All right, back to our document here. The oceans, the great homogenizers, that kind of means like mixers, okay, have laid down another deep layer of mud. Boom. All you mud flood fans, all you Tartaria fans, okay, this is your part. All right, the mud. Well, there's the liquefaction from the earthquakes, and there's the mud from, whatever waters fall back down or whatever. It says another deep layer of mud is laid over existing strata in the Great Plains as exposed in the Grand Canyon, Painted Desert, and Badlands. You know how, like, when you look at these strange, if you look at a cliff or something, you can see, like, there are clear lines in the cliff of different types of sediment or whatever. That only happens when water rushes in with all this mixed up stuff. That's why he says it's the great homogenizer. Water has all these different elements inside of it. It's all shaking. It's all, moving around. But then each element settles in its own layer. That's where that comes from. And it happens quickly. It's not just the earth just growing a new layer and it just pops up as brand new, different kind of rock. Okay. There are events that are alchemical in nature that transmute objects and move things around quite quickly. Blickeroni, hey, what's up, man? Says, J-Dreamers, there's a new anime called Dr. Stone that's specifically about all humans being petrified by a plasma wave and the survivors having to rebuild civilization from scratch. I read the very first copy or the first chapter, I don't know what you call it, somebody sent that to me a while back, and I read that, and it's exactly what that is. These are the stories we tell, and the most exciting stories are our end and our beginning. At least to me. That's the most exciting part to me. I'm excited about that. And every single one of our stories is about those events or somewhere in between. Like, we are living in the Pixar theory, but it's not Pixar. It's us. It is our continuous, never-ending story. All right, let's keep on reading. Let's see. The Bay of Bengal Basin, just east of India, is now at the North Pole. The Pacific Ocean, just west of Peru, is at the South Pole. Greenland and Antarctica, and that's probably why Trump is all trying to buy Greenland, I would assume, because these people tend to have inside information about these places. Crazy. He can buy it all he wants to. It's not going to matter. Greenland and Antarctica now rotating equatorially in the torrid zone. I think torrid just means warmer climate. Find their ice caps dissolving madly in the tropical heat. Massive walls of water and ice surge toward the oceans, taking everything from mountains to plains in gushing, heaving paths, creating immense seasonal moraines. In less than 25 years, the ice caps are gone and the oceans around the world rise over 200 feet with the newfound water. The torrid zone will be shrouded in a fog. Time out. The torrid zone will be shrouded in a fog for generations from the enormous amounts of moisture poured into the atmosphere by the melting ice caps. Or, another idea, right, is that the world depressurizes and there is a great mist over all of our world for some time. There is a fog everywhere. That's why there is, and a lot of times in the movies, I like to talk about the movies because they contain so much truth. Like I said, the Phantazoids come into our world, so that's why you always have these monsters that are creeping around in the fog or in the mist or whatever, that's why that misty, foggy scenes are always sort of scary in the movies, because they're associated with the world event, this reset. Vanessa V is in the chat and says, so to survive and last the aftermath, we would have to hide or fight, or both. But how long do you think it will last? Well, it's not guaranteed, that you would have to fight or any of that stuff. Like, this is random. A lot of this stuff is random. Like, it happens. I mean, I don't know. You could see it as random or you could see it as fate, right? Either way. But just, okay. Let me finish reading your comment. How long do I think it will last? Okay, so I believe that this event, when the sky is open and the plasma comes down, the plasma is going to stick around for 6 days, just like he said in this document. Plasma is going to reshape our world for 6 days. Those are the 6 days of creation. That's why this is called the Adam and Eve story. This is all about the creation of our world. It's the recreation of our world time and time and time again, right? So yeah, 6 days for the plasma. Not the 6-day weather plasma, of course, but the plasma effect on people and things. I think that the plasma effect, or the after effects of the plasma, are going to last for about 1,000 years, for a very long time, okay? Mostly because the effects, for the most part, I believe, are going to be, they're going to benefit us. They're beneficial effects, okay? Plasma is life. It is energy. Our world is going to have an influx of life and energy for a very long time. And if the ancient records are correct, it's about another eon or another 1,000 years. It doesn't, maybe it's not exactly that much, but I could see it lasting a very long time. Now, it's possible there may be, I'm still looking into this, but it's possible there may be these plasmic resets in between that 6,000 year markers, but they're just smaller ones. They're little mini resets, if you want to call it that, or mini depressurizations, I should say, right, of our world. That's just a possibility. I'm just throwing that one out there. Hey, if you're watching right now, there's 200 people watching. I just want to say, hey, thanks for stopping by my channel. I appreciate it. We're talking about one of the most important things that a person can talk about, the cyclical end and beginning of our world that happens, that every culture, every religion, all of our ancient ancestors revered it, respected it, knew about it, talked about it, and prepared for it. We live in a world today where that has run far from our minds. We have forgotten. Some of us are beginning to remember, and I believe it's going to increase exponentially. A lot of us are going to start remembering more and more and more until basically it makes its way into the public view. And it will be referenced. I mean, it's already being referenced in our fantasy movies and our sci-fi movies and our books and stuff. Well, it's going to be remembered to a point, like the 100 Monkey Effect, where even people on the news and stuff, they're going to have to say and start acknowledging, you know, you're going to see this. I'll bet you in the near future, you're going to see the news story starting to say, you know, like, certain religious groups are saying it's the end of the world, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like that whole end of the world stuff is going to make its way to the very top. And it might come in different shades. It might come in different colors. But just keep your eyes out because it's a sign. All right. Good question, Vanessa. All right. I'm going to jump back in the chat in a bit. Let me finish this up here. Oh, yeah. So you've got the worldwide fog right there. New ice caps begin to form in the new polar areas, Greenland, and I want to say it like what's that guy's name? In The Princess Bride, the boss. I forgot his name. What's anyway? Every time I see the word Greenland, I think of him saying the word Greenland, just like that. Let's see. So basically, the ice caps melt in Greenland and in Antarctica. And they all start flourishing, growing, you know, tropical foliage, plants and stuff. Australia is the new, here's for my Australian friends in New Zealand, is the new unexplored continent in the North Temperate Zone. Good news for you, right? With only a few handfuls of survivors. Possible good news for you, right? I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, I know. But you gotta stay positive, okay? There's going to be handfuls of survivors everywhere. And I hate that I can't just tell you you're all safe and that you're all going to be fine because you're all good people, etc. I can't promise that. I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is that these things have happened many times in the past, and they're bound to happen again. And it's best to be wise instead of being afraid. And the wise, I've found, have a much easier time laughing. Australia is the new unexplored continent in the North Temperate Zone with only a few handfuls of survivors populating its vastness. New York lies at the bottom of the Atlantic, shattered, melted by earth fire, and covered by unbelievable amounts of mud. Of San Francisco and Los Angeles, not a trace is left. Egypt emerges from its Mediterranean inundation new and higher. Still the land of the ages, the commonplace of our time, becomes the mysterious Baalbek of the new era. A new era, yes, the Cataclysm has done its work well. I like this guy's perspective. The Cataclysm has done it. See, I love that he respects it, you know? He respects that this is something that has a goal in mind. You know what I mean? There is a purpose behind this, right? So he congratulates it. I think that's the honorable thing to do. The greatest population regulator of all does once more for man what he refuses to do for himself, and drives the pitiful few who survive into a new Stone Age. Well, you know, maybe pitiful after a week of hell and a plasma apocalypse, but believe me, I don't believe you're going to be so pitiful once it's all said and done. Give yourself a year or two after that. It's going to be quite interesting, especially if, you know, gravity is a lot weaker. You're basically going to have superpower because you trained up these muscles in a world of high pressure, right? Which makes high pressure and higher gravity or higher electromagnetism, right? The strongest point, right? So you have been training. Now you don't even have to work out or anything. Just walking around and living in this world, and then transferring into the new world. If I'm correct, and that force is weaker to begin with, then you're basically going to be like a superhero, as well as all the other great things that happen too, like accelerated healing properties and things of that nature. All right, let's get back to this document. Once more, the Earth has shifted its 60-mile thick shell, with the poles moving almost to the equator in a fraction of a day. Now, I do believe the Earth has a shell. It's just I think that the shell, most likely, is up above us, around us, right? Sort of the barrier, the ice dome, however you like to say it. Again, the atmosphere and oceans refusing to change direction with the Earth's shell have wiped out almost all life. After this tumble, we join Noah, Adam, Eve, Atlantis, Mu, and Olympus, and Jesus joins Osiris, Taora, Zeus, and Vishnu. Man, isn't that just epic? Like, it makes me proud to really just be a part of it all. Yes, I'm a part of the really crappy Kali Yuga. Okay, I'm a part of the worst possible moment, possibly. Okay, I can't imagine it getting worse than this, but you know, we'll see. But in a way, I'm honored. I really am. I'm really honored to be here. Like, thanks for having me during the apocalypse. This is cool. This is really exciting. That's for me. Okay, might not be for everybody, might not be for you, but I think it's exciting. I think it's an honor. Like, you know, let's say that I lived in a prior life, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, whenever, a long time ago, right? Let's say I was just speculating about the future. Or we could talk about right now and speculate about the past, right? And say, oh, wow, the cyclical world cataclysm, all this crazy stuff's happening. Wouldn't that be insane if you could, like, you know, put on your virtual reality headset and look around and experience it and be there? Right? Like, let's say 1,000,000 years into the future. 1,000,000 years into the future, right? Let's say that, you know, the people had access to the libraries and they had it all figured out. You know, super intelligent people way in the future. They had it all figured out, all of our past. They had it figured out, and their technology allows you to, instead of read books, maybe put on these goggles or something, you know, and you can experience the history, right? People would like to do that. Well, let's say instead of putting on goggles, the technology was so advanced that you could plug yourself in and wake up. And it looks like you have actual flesh and you're bleeding and everything is so realistic. And now you get to really live it. If that would be the case, and let's just say that I did that and I had forgotten about where I came from because I was so into this game or so into this, you know, video game or history or whatever. That's like the holodeck, right? Anyway, you see where I'm going with that. All right, let's keep going. So that was the main part I wanted to read there. Then he talks about the great floods. I'm going to skim through the rest of this here. And then I'm just going to sort of wrap things up when we're done. Noah, Adam, Eve, Vishnu, Osiris. What do they have in common? They represent eras, ages apart. And yet, somehow, they all join hands in the next cataclysm and walk with us. There are others who walk with us too, men of science long forgotten. Those who first saw that these tumbles, these cataclysmic catastrophes or revolutions of the Earth's shell have happened before. Right? Just like I said in the last video. Or just like Bert says in Mary Poppins, right? He says, I feel what's to happen. All happened before. That's part of his song that he sings, right? Countless times, J. André Deluc in 1779 and Georges Cuvier in 1812 were the foremost. Dolomieu, the famous mineralogist, joined the consensus, as did Escher and Forel and Swiss geologists, also J. André Deluc Jr. and von Buch. They all agreed that the cataclysms were caused by sudden revolutions of the surface of the earth. Right? That was their theory. Now, I might not agree with that theory, but I'm on their side as far as like, yeah, you guys are right. Cyclical cataclysms. This does happen. This is very important. We should be studying this, right? We should all be studying it. It would be nice if we all studied it. That way, individuals wouldn't have to do all the studying on their own, right? We could share our common knowledge. What was that? Hey, the Collector just subscribed. Welcome to the Collector. Cool name, man. All right, let's keep moving. All right, Cuvier in his Theory of the Earth, first published in 1812. Now, think about that. 1812. This is a long time ago. Believe it or not, philosophy was alive and well, okay? Going back less than 50 years ago. People were allowed to speculate on the nature of existence and reality and the world, etc. It wasn't all established. We didn't have pre-made answers that were popping up on our search engines. You know, we didn't have one... Well, I mean, we sort of did have schools and stuff, but if you go back even further, we didn't have the schools that were just instructing everyone on the same curriculum, the same loop, keeping us all in the loop, right? We didn't have that. People taught their children. Families taught their children. And they taught them the most important things that they possibly could. Part of that is this. They would teach them how the world cyclically comes to an end, what to look out for, how to survive, how to grow your food, where to get water, really simple things. They didn't have to know that George Washington had wooden teeth, right? That's just potpourri. It's, I don't even know what to call that. That's just trivia, man. That's only good for people that just enjoy watching Jeopardy. Hey, Truth Seeker, just subscribed. Welcome. All right, let's get back on track. Well, I'm going to get back on track. Based his conclusions on the unparalleled correlative research in stratigraphy, comparative anatomy, and paleontology. One second, I'm just going to skim right through this. Okay, this is pretty important. At that time, he wrote, every part of the earth, every hemisphere, every continent exhibits the same phenomenon. There has therefore been a succession of variants or variations in the economy of organic nature. The various catastrophes which have disturbed the strata have given rise to numerous shiftings of this continental basin. It is of much importance to mark... Okay, I'm going to stop right there because of the way he's talking, I need to paraphrase this. Wow, John. Hey, welcome, John. All right. So basically what this guy's saying in a different language, basically, is that, yes, I agree. From time to time, the world goes through these cataclysmic shifts. This happens. People looked into this. People studied this and researched this. Now, if you study it and research it, you're a loony. You're a weirdo. You're a tinfoil hatter. You're a mad hatter, right? Good. I'm glad to be a part of that club. Because that's the survival club, okay? In case you didn't know, right? Everybody can laugh. They can point fingers. They can cast their insults and jokes because I'm going to wave goodbye as they're getting sucked up into the sky, right? And I'm safe inside of a cave or something, right? So yeah, they can laugh all the way to the bank if they want to. But when it comes to being prepared, that's wise. A wise man does that. A wise woman does that. That's something you would do for people you love, right? Prepare them for, the horrific and probable inevitability. So I don't think it's cool to, to make light of these people. Like, I like the show Doomsday Preppers. I haven't seen it in forever, but I used to watch it all the time. What I don't like is that how they have a slight flavor of these people are loonies. You know what I mean? A lot of people watch it because they're like, wow, check these people. They're really dedicated. Wow, they're really devoted to this, man. Wow. Yeah, that's a good thing, man. You should learn from them. That's just my opinion. All right. Let's go back to the document. I'm going to skim through this part because this part's kind of boring in the way that it's written. And I don't like reading boring. Not boring. I shouldn't say boring, but you know what I mean. Among others, Velikovsky, that's Immanuel Velikovsky, he wrote a really good book called Worlds in Collision, tried it through his study of myths and legends. Hapgood, Charles Hapgood, tried it. Brown attempted, and in the process amassed a tremendous library of geological data. What is he saying here? He's saying all these people did their research, and they added to the bigger picture. Every time the cataclysmic concept has come to life, the beast has been stoned, burned at the stake, beaten to a pulp, and buried with a vengeance, but the corpse simply won't stay dead. What he's talking about is he's talking about the subject matter of the end of the world. Each time it raises the lid of its coffin and says in sepulchral tones, "You will die before I." What does that mean? That means that this is an unending process. This is something that happens for time immemorial, right? So long that people don't even remember, right? And this is also Cthulhu. That's the voice of Cthulhu as well, from the Cthulhu mythos of a vast array of world eater type gods, okay? Usually the tentacle type, right, are up there, metaphorically. And that's what they do. They wake up out of their slumber, right? They come down into the world. They cause chaos, right? And then something happens. Typically, it's a whitish blue light or a flaming sword or, some sort of pillar or beanstalk or whatever shoots up from our world. Godzilla, right? And fights the Hydra or the dragon or Cthulhu or whatever. And ultimately, that entity goes back to sleep behind the waters above. And that's basically the voice of Cthulhu, who just lives forever and ever, which is the plasma, And he says, "You will die before I." This is the house of death, okay? Being in here means your clock is ticking, right? Now, you can get more time on your clock should you survive this plasma apocalypse, I believe, okay? All right, I'm going to skim through a little bit more. We're going to see what else this has to offer here. This was no extraordinary extinction of a vague geological period which fizzled into an uncertain end. This death was catastrophic and all-inclusive. What caused the death of 40 million animals? Somebody asked me about that once. I said, "Jay Dreamers, what about the animals, right?" The animals are no exception, okay? The animals will get sucked up too. Not all of them, right? Remember Noah's story of the flood? There was 2 of every kind. That's all you need, right? It's probably not exactly 2 or whatever, but it's the truth behind the story, right? It's the truth behind it all. And the truth is, yeah, animals are going to get sucked up. Rocks, plants, people, everything will go up into the sky and be affected by the plasma that comes down and be affected by the liquefaction and the mud floods or quicksand, whatever you like to call it. The corpus delicti in this mystery may be found almost anywhere. Their bones lie bleaching in the sands of Florida and in the gravels of New Jersey. They weather out of the dry terraces of Texas and protrude from the sticky ooze of the tar pits off Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. Which really blows my mind, man. Like, there are tar pits in LA, and people just go there like they're going to Magic Mountain or Disneyland or, whatever you guys call your local amusement parks, right? Six Flags, Elitches, etc. They go to the tar pits. It's literally like a trophy of the cyclical world reset that's, boom, planted right there in the ground and says, look, here's some evidence. Here's your breadcrumb. Here's your clue, right? But no, people just go and go, wow, look at that. Wow, that's so interesting. But it's not really interesting to them. It's amusing to them because they're not really thinking. They're not processing. They're not trying to figure it out. They just go, oh, wow, isn't that cool? Wow, that's so cool. No, stop. Okay. Process it, chew it up, digest it so that you can use it as a tool to better your life. You know what I mean? All right. I'm just going to skip through a little bit more here. A picture of quick extinction. Oh, here's the good stuff. Mammoth and bison were torn and twisted as though by a cosmic hand in a godly rage. Oh, I thought that was going to talk about the frozen mammoths. Here we go. In many places, the Alaskan muck blanket is packed with animal bones and debris in trainload lots. This guy is a paleontologist. So, I mean, he's had experience. And his colleagues, apparently, have had experience, digging up lots of dead bodies underground. So I'd listen to what he says about this. Mammoths, mastodon, bison, horses, wolves, bears, and lions, a faunal population, which means they eat vegetables. They have to live in an area that promotes the growing of vegetables, okay? Siberia today, not so much, okay? They are all the way around the Arctic Circle, not so much, right? That place used to be warm, but something came down and froze them into statues. So when you see that in the movies, when you see like all the characters are just frozen in ice or whatever for some strange reason, that's what it's showing you. Okay? It's not just making things up. Everything comes from truth. Was suddenly frozen. Your movie Frozen, right? I haven't even seen it, and I'm sure this is what it's all about. In a grim charade. Fantastic winds. Volcanic burning. Inundation and burial in muck. That means the mud floods, okay? The muds come up. If you're not on bedrock, you have a good chance of sinking. So be super careful, all right? And as a part of survival, I would look up how do people, possibly, how do people survive quicksand? How to survive quicksand, stuff like that, right? Oh, by the way, I also figured this out. Everything we're describing, this world as it will be, okay? During the 6 days of Hell Week, or you know what I mean? Like during the plasma apocalypse, it is exactly the fire swamp in A Princess Bride. Okay? You've got the REOSs, which are basically Phanazoids. You've got quicksand, right? And she falls down in the quicksand. And then you've got like the fire spurts that have a popping noise that precede them. That's electrical. That's why it has a popping noise. Anyways, yeah, it's basically the fire swamp. So if you can survive the fire swamp, then you just might get to marry the princess. All right, so right here, this guy's going to talk about how he's really bugged by the plasma apocalypse, by the cyclical reset that the world has. And he knew it had to have answers, right? He wanted to figure it out. He wanted to figure out what the source is, what is causing, according to him, the crust to shift and the world to do this and why does it happen, right? So I'm going to save you guys a lot of reading right now. Basically, he speculates that our planet flies through an area that affects the electromagnetics at the core. This is actually really important because he's onto something with this part. Okay? it does have everything to do with the electromagnetics of our world changing, right? He describes it in a different color than I do, but basically he's right on the money. And that's what it is. It is all electromagnetic. I don't know if you guys have seen, remember in Stranger Things, season 3, spoiler alert, all right? When the magnets fall off the fridge, right? The magnets all, for some reason, stop working. Well, why? Because they were shooting that blue beam into that wall, trying to open up a portal to basically hell, okay? And it causes the magnets to stop working in that town or whatever. That town represents our world. That blue beam represents the plasma apocalypse, right? And the wall opening up and creatures coming out and stuff like that. So there's another sign that you can look for. Or did your magnets fall off the fridge? Have they all stopped working? Has your power gone out? Like all of these are signs, little things for us to look for to pick up the breadcrumbs and find our way back home. Clarence Wilkerson's in the chat. What's up, Clarence? Says, J Dreamers, the great old ones of Rayleigh, all of them are phantazoids. Very interesting. Good lecture, bro. I love this topic. H.P. Lovecraft goes into detail about the great old ones or the Titans. I have not even read H.P. Lovecraft, but I like the guy. I really do. Because I've skimmed through. He's come up in a lot of my research. And I don't know a whole lot about like Cthulhu mythos. I just heard the word Cthulhu for the first time like 5 years ago. I didn't even know what that was. And I didn't know there was a cult that followed Cthulhu, right? It's the same cult that exists that all are the knowers of this event. That's the big secret, okay? All right, so let's see here. So he's going to talk about like how old the different places are around the world. I want to read this story about... Well, I'll read this part. Yes, Vishnu came alive, a man who lived through a cataclysm 70,000 years before our time. Actually, 10 cataclysms ago. Now he is known as the Hindu god of 10 resurrections from the waters. Osiris, too, was rediscovered. He was the Jesus of his time, a man of Egypt some 15,000 years ago. Noah smiled at us from the pages of the Epic of Gilgamesh. He actually was a Sumerian named Utnapishtim, who lived 6,500 years ago. The ark he built is more than legend. The process of a cataclysm is known now. Well, it's known by some, right? All right, I'm going to skip this part right here. He's going to talk a lot about the inner earth and, the core of the earth and the lava and all that stuff. I'm kind of going to skip that part just because I'm not a big fan of that particular mode of thought anymore. I used to be. So he says, what about the trigger? I wish I could talk to this guy, right? What about the trigger? He's trying to figure out what's the trigger, right? He's trying to figure out what's going on. Well, a part of nature's ordinary structure which disrupts the Earth's inner electrical and magnetic structure whenever it happens. Right? He says it has to be something natural. It says that right there. And a part of nature's ordinary structure. Something that disrupts the electrical and magnetic structure. It's electromagnetic. The power is going to be shut off, basically. It's going to go through a neutral point. Their power will go off for a little while, and then it'll come back on. Which actually just happened to me, which is a little tiny. When that happened to me, I understand and I recognize, and I talk up to the greater picture, whatever you want to call it, and I see that this is a fractal ripple in reality, right? All those things that happen on the tiniest little scale, the seemingly insignificant events, those are the butterfly's wings that create the bigger storms. They manifest things. So it's okay to pay attention to detail. It's okay to be analytical. It's okay to wonder at the smaller things in life because they reflect the very biggest things. All right, back on. Let's see if there's anything else here I wanted to share. Oh, there is some stuff I wanted to share here. All right, so now he's going to give you a list, all right? A list of all the red flags that exist in our world that point to this cyclical reset. So I'm going to read it. You can see then that ice ages are not a matter of advancing and retreating ice. This guy said this a long time ago. They're still teaching this in schools. It's simply that different areas of the Earth are in polar regions at different times, for different durations of time, with the changes between position taking place in a fraction of a day. This happens quickly, not over millions of years, right? When I look over at the Garden of the Gods here in Colorado Springs or the mountains or anything, right? And I ask these people, hey, what's up with these weird rock formations? Why do they look like that, etc.? Well, millions of years of rain. And no, I'm sorry, I don't believe it. I just don't. Right? It doesn't look like rain poured on it for millions of years, and it doesn't look like that, you know? We need a better explanation. So here's some red flags. Here's some clues. Here's some breadcrumbs. The story around the world gives a silent testimony. The Beresovka mammoth, frozen in mud, with buttercups in his mouth. Frozen in mud, right? He's frozen because that cold air came down in the downdraft, and he was in mud because he was sinking down into the earth. Which, by the way, the author that wrote the book that I got the copyright strike for, what was that? I have it right here. Let's see. This one right here, The Lost Book of King Og. He talks about in his book, whether he made it up or not, he still hits home on the truth. He talks about how one of the things that helped to kill the Titans in this war between the giants and the Titans was that the Titans started to sink into the mud. It started raining so much, all this mud was just created, and they sank down into the mud. Right? Same type of thing. All right, let's see what else we have. The age of the gorges below Niagara Falls and St. Anthony's Falls, both about 6,500 years. The sudden end of the Laurentian Basin ice cap in Canada, about 11,500 years ago. The uninterrupted years of evolution on the Galapagos, over 11,000 years ago. The geological datings in the Murrumbidgee River Basin system. Oh my God, I can't talk. The geological datings in the Murrumbidgee River Basin system in Australia, showing the end of an ice cap there about 11,500 years ago. The age of fossil bones taken from the Wilshire Boulevard tar pits, over 11,000 years. The sudden end of all work in the prehistoric city of Tiahuanaco, Peru, 9,500 years ago, or 11,500 years ago. Leonard Woolley's great work in the Holy Land, dating Noah's flood to about 6,000 years ago. The end of the Wisconsin ice cap, about 29,000 years ago. The sudden 200-foot rise of all the oceans all over the world, 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. The sudden rise of the St. Lawrence riverbed, about 6,500 years ago. The changing levels of the shoreline in the Hudson Bay. The granite blocks from the Alps sitting on the eastern slopes of the Jura Mountains at 4,000 feet above sea level. The great legendarian Fraser's uncovering of over 8,000 separate inundation survival legends in the Malay Peninsula region alone, right? 8,000 separate inundation, right? Like a great flood, basically. Survival legends. 8,000 stories of people surviving these great floods in just the Malaysia area, basically. The Pajark Marsh in Australia, which shows a quick extinction of a civilization 11,500 years ago. Let me stop right there. We all have heard of these ancient lost civilizations, right? Does anyone stop and say, well, wait a minute, this is huge. We should figure this out. Where do these civilizations go? Civilizations don't just pack their bags and just disappear from the whole planet. Okay? Unless they do. Unless they get sucked up into the sky. Or possibly they retreat down into the inner earth, where I believe conditions exist that would significantly alter their lives, and they stayed there. Either way, these civilizations went somewhere, right? The Mayans, Like that's the first one everyone thinks of is the Mayans. They went somewhere, man. They didn't just die out. It wasn't like all the Caucasian people just sneezed on them and gave them the plague and they all died or anything. No, man. They're gone in mass all at one time. This is probably the story of the Exodus now that I think about it. You know, that story probably applies time and time and time again. And you know what? We'll probably have another one. I wouldn't mind going. I'll be right up there at the front with everybody else, right? Hey, let's go be safe. I'm all for that. And actually, I am studying the North Pole right now as a possible location. When I have my ducks in a row, I'll probably share more information about that particular topic. Let's go back. You have the Piri Reis map showing the North Pole in the Sudan Basin. The Egyptian water clock showing agreement with the Piri Reis map. Granite on the top of the mountains around Death Valley in California. The great stratifications of the Grand Canyon, Painted Desert, and Badlands, each layer homogeneous, showing it to be deposited there suddenly by fantastic amounts of water. Right? It's not dust blowing across the land over millions of years, okay? So stop teaching that. Don't do that, okay? Just dust blowing across and it just builds up and no, I'm sorry. Okay? that doesn't sound right at all. Okay? I don't have any evidence, hardcore evidence. I can't quote anything or cite anything. I'm just telling you that sounds wrong. All right, the computable age of the Antarctic and Greenland ice caps about 6,500 years. The present growth of the Antarctic ice cap about 293 cubic miles per year. The legends from primitive man in Tierra del Fuego. I'm pretty sure, I don't speak Spanish, but I believe this means land on fire. Isn't that what that means? That's interesting. Anyway, or land of fire, possibly. At the southern tip of South America of the day the sun set in the wrong direction. The sun does not have to follow that same path, and it hasn't. It's changed its path many times in the past. This has been recorded. Even in the most popular book in the world, the Holy Bible, or the Christian Bible, or whatever you want to call it, one of the main stories is a story about this guy Joshua that talked to God and said, hey, I need some help. It's getting dark. And God stopped the sun in the sky. If we were in the globular model spinning around like that and the sun stopped, that doesn't mean that the sun stopped. That means that the earth went all at once, which would shoot us all in one direction, instantly killing everybody. If you take that story literally. Excuse me. Which I do. Oh, by the way, it's cranberry juice and water mixed together. That's my new health drink, I guess you could call it. Hey, Rue, what's up? Welcome. It's good to see you. Maria Beckos, hey, what's up? All right, Semyaza says at JDreamers. I check the chat sometimes when people type in at JDreamers, it highlights on my side. Semyaza says, JDreamers, my advice, learn how to self-sustain or learn how to sustain yourself. Things like planting, fire starting, water filtration, and picks in case of memory loss. A smart man plans ahead. I totally agree with you. He also says the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. And remember, don't count the days, make the days count. Ooh, I like that. Ted Ozzy says, JDreamers, you are correct. Tierra or terra, earth, del fuego, fire. So I suppose land of fire. Rue, I'm really happy to hear you looking for a different place. California does not seem to me to be a safe place when this happens. Okay? That's all I can say about it. You know? Any place that's right next to the ocean, it's not going to be a great idea. But anyhow, I'm sending all my positive vibes your way, Rue. I'm sending them all your way because I believe that a lot of people, we are called to be in particular places at a particular moment for a specific reason. that there is a purpose to your life and your path and your walk, and that we don't have to panic or run around like chickens with our heads cut off, but you look up, you trust in life, and you keep trudging the path forward, knowing that it's the path you were meant to take. All right, let's keep going. I'm gonna jump into the chat in just a minute. We're almost done. All right, let's see. There are the legends from the primitive man in Peru of the day that the sun stood still. See, this stuff is accounted for. It's written. It's established. I sound like Roger from Mud Fossils. This has been accepted. It's established already, right? Shout out to Mud Fossil University, by the way. The legends from Malayan and Sumatran Aborigines of the long night, right? The Varv, or Earth strata, counts in Renshaw, Minnesota, and Hackensack, New Jersey, which agree. The prevalence of jade in the Orient, which is material heaved up from the mantle near equatorial pivot points during a tumble. The fantastic evidence of a burgeoning tropical population in the Arctic, Siberia, and Alaska, completely wiped out in a fraction of a day. The similarity of languages the world over, from Polynesian to Greek to Egyptian to Mayan to Eskimo or Inuit to Yakut to Oriental and more. The correlation of ice ages and quick extinctions the world over. The survival of primitive life at equatorial pivot points. The last two being the Malay Peninsula and the Galapagos, now ripe with lizards. The existence of a coral reef on the floor of the Arctic Ocean. And more and more and more and more and more give us a historical picture. See, I don't like when people say historical. I know I'm nitpicking right now. I just want to point this out. All you have to say is historic. I don't know why people say historical. It's just weird to me. Try not to do that anymore. Earth's shell during the past 3,500 years. Okay, so basically what he's saying here. Take this down for a second. Hold on. There we go. I like to get rid of that. Okay, it's white and it's very bright. And I do it out of respect for a lot of you out there and also for myself. Later on when I rewatch this video and I read everything in the chat, I don't want that big white, everything of mine is in dark mode. So that's why all the stuff on my channel is very dark tinted, because I want to be considerate of all of you out there. I don't think it's good to stare into a bright white light all the time, especially if you're going to try to go to sleep and stuff. So yeah, that's why, in case you ever wondered, why I have so much dark stuff on my channel. That's the main reason why. It's easier on the eyes. All right, so I want to skip to the story. It's Hindu story, if I could find it here. Okay, so now he's going to start getting a little bit more into the Adam and Eve story in Genesis 1, 2, and 3, okay? He's really going to get into talking about Ezra, Moses and Aaron, their lineage, their jobs, what they did, relationships to one another. That's why we're actually going to skip a lot of this part. This part right here is him talking about the glyphs and how they were reinterpreted. He believes that the creation glyphs were reinterpreted by Moses, who was raised in the Royal Egyptian Library, and he had access to many of these sacred ancient histories before they were burned. All the world's libraries were burned, right? They didn't want people to have this information. And I say they because I mean specifically they, the group with the knowledge, the group with the secret, the group that continuously tries to survive and perpetuate their family line so that they can retain their memories, retain their knowledge, and be the leaders and gods of the next world, enslaving everybody else, basically. So if anyone ever asks you, why would they do that? That's why they would do it. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I forgot I took down the thing. There we go. All right, so I'm just scrolling through the rest of the document real quick. All right, so he's going to talk about a lot of biblical history here. I won't bore you with that. I spent a lot of time studying that stuff myself a while back, and it's going to just confuse a lot of people if I read it, basically. So here's what he's going to say. I'm going to summarize the rest of this. He's going to say that the significant Naga glyphs given to us by Ezra through Moses' direct reading are. Now, what he's saying right now, let me reinterpret that, is a long time ago, these stories were written in picture form, okay? And there were these earlier alphabets, one specifically, I think Charles Hapgood probably did a book about it, called the Naga glyphs, or the writing of the Naga. Now, the Naga are basically, in various cultures, serpent beings, right? Or serpent-like beings, I should say, right? They're the scaly, shimmery, shiny, angel, demonic, godlike, otherworldly, alien-type entities, right? Now they're starting to become cartoonified into what we call reptilians. We're making them look like lizards and stuff. I'm not so 100% sure about that, but I think that there's truth to it, right? So what he's saying is if you look at the writing of the Naga, right? They drew these particular pictures, which he believes may have been interpreted differently by Moses, by Ezra, by some other scribes of the past, and their interpretations were based on the beliefs of the time. They were based on what was popular at the time, what was understood or expected at the time as far as morals and traditions and values and dogma go, which makes sense to me, right? All right. Oh, hold on. The flaming sword. I just happened to see that as I was scrolling. I don't remember what he says about the flaming sword, but cherubims, right? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm like reading this as I'm. All right, so cherubim. You don't have to say cherubims either. You could just say cherubim because the I am is plural. So cherubim, which were not pretty plump babies. I love that. But hybrid man and beast, or possibly phantazoids, right, of the chimera type. These were the glyphs for legs or foundations or underpinnings. Instead of being placed in the Garden of Eden, one was taken away, and a Naga or Maya reading of the Egyptian Book of the Dead shows that cherubs of the north, east, south, and west were taken away, meaning that the foundations of the mother continent in all directions were removed, or destroyed. The flaming sword. Now, I don't remember what he said about the flaming sword exactly, but my theory on the flaming sword is it is that baby blue white light that shoots up from the center of the world, goes into the sky, hits the dome, all that stuff. Possibly hits the dome. The dome might already be broken open. I don't know if that light is what breaks it open, but that light emerging is the sign that it's going to be okay. Okay? That's because light is not coming down anymore. It's coming up. Energy is flowing upwards. Right now, energy is flowing downward. Light is coming down upon us, right? But energy is going to flip around, and light's going to go up, and it's going to shoot right up into the sky. That's going to be the sign and the signal that it's okay. People are going to look at it. They're going to see that the sword fought off, the dragon, or however they're going to describe it. In whatever storytelling that they have, they're going to see that pillar of light shoot up from the sky, and they're going to see the plasma tentacles start dissipating, and they're going to go, oh, it defeated the dragon, or, the giants or the titans or whatever. It's the same story all the time. And he also talks about the tree here. That's also the tree of life, the world tree, etc. All right, I'm looking for this particular story real quick. I just want to share this. The event, 11,500 years ago. Boom. I'm going to read this part right here because it's actually a really good metaphor. Did you ever sit down for an evening at a card table with a 1,000-piece puzzle by yourself? It takes hours and hours to put it together, doesn't it? With trial and error and patience all playing their parts. We are still trying to figure out some of the as yet unfitted pieces in our worldwide puzzle, and we've been at the table since 1949. I have to applaud this guy. I really do. Instead of saying, I have all the answers, I figured it out, You know, like, and that's what we all do. Everyone does that. You know, from time to time, everyone pops up and they say, oh, this is the way that it is. This is the way that this guy's saying, hey, it's a piece of the puzzle, you know? And the more of us that work on the puzzle, the faster we're going to put together the bigger picture. So that's why I take my puzzle pieces and I hand them to you. And I say, hey, here's what I found. What can you do with that, right? Because you see different parts of the puzzle. And maybe that piece fits, you know what I mean? I like that idea. So I applaud this guy for acknowledging that. Okay. All right, I'm just going to skip down. I did put the link in the chat at the beginning of the live stream, so feel free to click on the link. I also put it in the description. Right now, I'm pretty much, I feel like we've covered all the major areas that this document has that I wanted to share. And I want to read a particular. Okay, now this is the part where he reinterprets. This is probably seen as super blasphemous by the church, but he basically rewrote the first 3 chapters of Genesis into like language that made it sound like this was all happening because of this cyclical reset, right? So let's skip through this part real quick. You can feel free to go over this on your own, check out the document. You can download it, or you can read it online, or you can buy the book. I don't know where you buy the book, but you can. I'm pretty sure people sell it all over the place. Okay, this part, this is some interesting part. This is right up my alley here. Conclusion. India, Greece, Egypt. When Indra, who goes by many names in many cultures, king of the gods, had destroyed the Titan, who held the waters of the earth captive in his entrails. Let's stop and think about that, okay? We have to stop. I want you to really, really stop, okay? Don't go into listening to story mode, okay? I'm not saying you are or anything. I'm just saying that's what we're taught to do, okay? This sounds like a story. So right now, naturally, we are not thinking because we're conditioned to be amused by stories. So let's think about this, right? Indra is also Thor, basically. Indra is also Indara, or the god of lightning, the god of thunder, okay? King of the gods. When he had destroyed the Titan, which means a much larger entity, who held the waters of the earth captive in his entrails. Think about what entrails look like, okay? I don't know if you've seen entrails, but they're basically like long strands, okay? That's the plasma. This is figurative language, story form, that's describing a real, actual event. Okay, the entrails of the Titan are holding on to the world's water supply. That's the plasma that's coming down, and the water supply gets sucked up into the sky. I mean, it's really that simple. Let's see. So now I'm going to read it again. Try to catch yourself if you find yourself tuning out. You know what I mean? There are certain vibrations that when we start to become aware, we can start to pay more attention and have a longer attention span and have more interest in things. So I'm going to read it again. See how you feel while I read this story. Try to focus inward right now for just a minute and see if you're focusing or if you're just listening to a story. You know what I mean? The difference between the two? When Indra, king of the gods, had destroyed the Titan who held the waters of the earth captive in his entrails, he returned to the heights of the central mountain with the song of the rains and running waters in his ears. But where his dwelling once stood, he saw only ruins and ashes. So he summoned Visvakarman, god of works and arts, and asked him to build another palace to match his powers. The architect set to work. Soon towers, buildings, and gardens rose among the lakes and the woods. Indra urged him forward impatiently. Each day he called for some fresh marvel, new delight for the eyes, walls more imperial, pavilions more richly adorned, statues greater in number and cunning. A fever seemed to burn in him. And Visvakarman, exhausted by his labors, decided to lay a complaint before the creator of the world. Brahma, received him, gave ear, and approved, and went to lead his cause before Vishnu, the supreme being. Help was promised. So let me stop right there. I just want to break this down. We tend to tune these things out, and because the veil of forgetfulness is so strong, we tend to immediately forget things we've just been told. Okay, so let me rephrase this because it's not in a language that we're used to hearing. Basically, there's this dude named Visvakarman, okay? He's the god of works and arts. He's basically working for Indra, right? Thor, basically, the god of thunder, the god of lightning, etc. He's working for him. He keeps building this huge palace, and Indra, aka Thor, in other religions or whatever, he's not satisfied. He says, bigger, make it better, make it more amazing. So finally, Visvakarman says, man, this sucks. I'm going to go talk to God, right? I'm going to talk to your authority. I want to talk to your supervisor, basically, is what happened. And so he goes to plead his cause before Vishnu. Now, in Hinduism, which is, I believe, what we're talking about here, there are three main deities at the very top. There's Brahma, who is like God, basically. He's like the infinite energy and presence. Then we have Vishnu, and Vishnu is like the incarnation of that entity, right? Into a point of focus, like Jesus, basically. And then you have Shiva, and Shiva is the constantly meditating destroyer of worlds, basically. All right. So he goes before Vishnu, and he's about to complain. He's about to say, hey man, this guy is making me build a lot of stuff, and it's getting old because it's the best I can do, right? So a young Brahmin appeared at the king's palace and demanded audience. Charmed by the light of his eyes. That's interesting. The light of his eyes, right? Indra granted his request. O king, said the messenger, thy palace shall be the noblest of all. These words were sweet to Indra's ears, and he rejoiced. Vishnu's messenger continued, it shall be the noblest of the places which the Indras before thyself sought to build. The king became uneasy. So now Indra just heard that there were prior Indras, and he was like, whoa, wait, what? Dost thou say that there were other Indras? Other Visvakarmans before ourselves? The palaces before mine? Other palaces before mine? Indeed, yes, the youth answered. I have seen them. Moreover, I have seen the world arise and vanish again, like a tortoise's shell coming out of infinite ocean and sinking back. I was present at the dawn and the twilight of the cycles, past counting in their numbers. They were past counting in their numbers. There were so many cycles. Nor could I count all of the Indras or Visvakarmans, even the Vishnus and the Brahmans, following one another without end. That's deep. I'm not even gonna comment on that one. I'm just gonna allow that one to marinate in people's head. Now, this is really interesting, right? This is the PDF version of the CIA document. They just happen to have the copy of the book that on these strange pages has these items that it's like a to-do list, right? Like this guy's like, okay, I need to buy a toolbox. I need to buy like a whole saw set. I need to buy a bit set. I need to buy a 9-volt transistor battery, recharger. I need to buy some C cells. I wonder what this list is probably for, right? There we go. Anyway, some other stuff too, probably. Ooh, that's interesting. All right, so I'm just gonna skip through real quick. There's a lot of other stuff in this document. We'd be here all day if I continued, though. I'm gonna allow you all to finish the research on your own. If you would like to click the link to this document, like I said. Oh, and this also gives all of his credentials. So all of you people out there who are interested in people's credentials and all their paperwork and all of their, approval by the society and whatever. That's all right here for your reading pleasure. I don't care. I could care less if somebody went to Harvard or if they grew up in the ghetto. Doesn't matter to me, right? Truth resonates. Oh, also some good reading too, by the way. I highly recommend checking out this guy if you would like to know more, especially about the lost continent of Mu. If you're interested in Atlantis and other disappeared ancient continents and things of that nature, Churchwood does a pretty good job on it. I haven't read all of these. I think this might be it. Oh, you know what? I want to read this. A little bit of knowledge can be a dangerous thing, or it can be a vibrant seed, giving rise to verdant forests and awakening sleeping giants. That's all I wanted to share with you guys today. Semyaz is in the chat and says, J Dreamers, the main factor is your vibes, frequency. Don't let the negative of this present world hinder you from the next. I totally agree. And honestly, that's something I'm working on with all of you. I'm working on like breathing. I'm working on pushing away all the negativity. I know, some people have said like, Jay, you're turning into a hippie, or Jay, you're all about this happy-go-lucky attitude or whatever. And, it's liked by some and not so much by others. It's my path, and I have decided. I used to be a jerk, man. So I have decided I got to change my mind and change my energy, because I believe life is talking to me. The universe, God, whatever you want to call it, your higher self is speaking loud and clear about certain things to me lately. And when God talks, you listen. When you talk, when you leave yourself clues to follow, you follow them. You know what I mean? So my life is currently changing because I'm hearing these things. I'm trusting in these clues that I'm finding everywhere. And they're leading me to some pretty extraordinary places, some pretty wonder-filled and amazing places. And I'm excited to share that path and that walk with you. Even if it's all completely absurd, even if it's all completely wrong, it's really not, because whatever you can think of is real. Or, if you're a Bible believer, there is nothing new under the sun. You can't invent something. You can only reinvent it. Or reimagine it. Sorry, normally I don't drink while I'm not alcohol. Okay, there's people out there that take YouTubers and they slur their speech and make them talk all slow. So yeah, it's vodka water, not vodka cranberry. It's not vodka anything. Okay, it's cranberry juice and water. Damn it, I messed that all up, didn't I? Messed it all up. Anyway, so yeah, we're done with that. Does anybody have any questions, any comments, anything like that? If you do, type in @JDreamers. I gotta go pretty soon because I gotta give my voice a break. There is always a way. Very well spoken. That's one of my favorite things to say. Samyaza says, J-Dreamers, it comes down to which wolf you're gonna feed, negative or positive. There is no lukewarm. If you are warm, I shall spit you out of my mouth. Yes, I see where you're going with that, but I don't want that to confuse people as well when talking about vibrations. I actually think it's going to be very beneficial for people to take on a neutral vibration during this event, right? I'm talking about like masculine and feminine vibrations, energetic properties, okay? So that's where I'm going with that. I think neutral, the middle path, is the way to go. I know that's not what you're saying. I just don't want people to get confused. But he's talking about, like, what kind of a person do you want to be? You want to feed the inner wolf that's selfish and angry and jealous and afraid, right? I'm done being afraid, right? Fear does not exist in this dojo, does it? This is my life. I'm free to walk about the cabin. I'm free to go wherever I want, do whatever I want, talk about whatever I want to. And I'm not afraid of what speculations other people have, right? Like when I used to talk about going to Antarctica, man, even people who were like conspiracy minded and stuff, they're like, oh, bro, don't go to Antarctica. You'll get killed. Excuse me, but what? Who are you to say that? Like, did you look into a crystal ball and you could see that happening or something? You know what I mean? They're afraid. They just invent reality in their mind, which is where all of these laws and stuff come from. They're not real. They're not. They're real in your mind. Your mind makes it real. Jay Star Peace says, J Dreamers, thank you for another great live stream. I love the energy here. So awesome. As do I. Hey, let's go ahead and blow up the chat. Let's blow it up with some positive emojis. If you happen to be in the chat, I'm just going to put a bunch of positive emojis and say good vibes. Because I like when people watch these videos later on, they also follow along in the chat. And I like to leave emojis for future people. That's what I like to do, believe it or not. Aloha, future. Boom. Oh, I put way too many emojis. It won't let me put that many. Okay, so apparently I have to delete some here. Sorry if I'm bumping into the microphone. I've tried 6,000 different positions with this microphone. I can't figure out where I want it. I hope the audio sounds good this time. I'm constantly working on everything. I would like to include music next time. So if you guys have any ideas about that, let me know. Obviously, it can't be copyrighted, but did that send? That didn't send. Hold on 1 second. Why isn't this working? Oh, here we go. There. No? There. Jeez, man. It's my own channel and I can't leave a comment. Anyway, good vibes to you all. Much love. I'm just typing a couple little comments for you guys. Hello, Rue. Let's see. Let me plug my own stuff real quick, okay? I have a website, jdreamers.com. I haven't really been promoting it that much because I'm a perfectionist. I'm constantly adding to it. But everyone I've shown it to says, hey, that's a good website. Even the people that work at Wix, when I've called them up to ask them questions, how to make it better or how to work certain things, they're like, let me pull it up. Oh, wow, that's a really cool website. You know, like, so I put a lot of time and effort into my website. If you're interested in these types of topics, go check it out. You know, some of the tabs, some of the pages there are open to the public. Other things, certain things on the website are for members only, and you can join that if you want to. And I mean website members, not YouTube members, okay? Two totally different things. The website I'm making is going to be a continuous collection of my own research and studies infinitely until the plasma apocalypse comes, basically. So I'm going to continuously be adding to it all of the time. And there's a lot of cool stuff there. So just go check it out. See what you think about it. If you like it, cool. I think that's about it, actually. Ted Ozzy says the AI talk to transformer. Is that what it's called? I'm not sure what you're saying. I should talk to artificial intelligence about the plasma apocalypse? I'll tell you what, how about you do that and then let me know how it went? That would be awesome. That way you could just tell me what happened and everything. Because honestly, I don't want to do it. I'm just gonna be honest with you. You know, I don't really want to do that. Like, I already know about it. I don't want to hear AI's opinion on it. I'll ask it when it comes to life. Basically, is how I kind of feel about that. Not only that, but like, you know, for example, a lot of people are like, J Dreamers, you need to go watch this movie. It's about the plasma apocalypse or whatever. Like, sometimes I do watch those movies, but for the most part, I get it. Like, I know what the story's about. You know what I mean? If you start looking into this stuff, you see it everywhere. You don't have to read the whole book of whatever, or watch the whole movie or whatever. You know where it's going. You know where it's headed. I hope that doesn't come across as cocky or anything. I just want to try to convey that I appreciate that you guys are like, hey, check this out. Sometimes I will. Other times I might not. And I hope you don't take it personal if I don't. All right. I'm going to go ahead and take off. I love you guys. I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot for spending time with me. I hope you learned something. I hope you got something out of this. I especially liked reading that little part in the Book of Mormon where it accurately describes people getting sucked up into the air, and whither they wentest, nobody knew, except into the air is where they went. Anyway, thanks a lot for joining me. I'm going to roll the credits, and I'll play a little ad here for memberships as well, because some people don't know what that is. It's a new feature on YouTube. Until next time, I'm going to be gone this weekend. Okay, so I left a thing in there for the movie fans. If you're in the movie fan membership or higher, right? I left a little note for you in the community tab. Make sure you get in and vote for what movie you'd like to see featured in the Truth in Movie segment. All right, until next time, I'm Jay Dreamer saying good vibes and goodbye. Thanks for watching.